This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Remembered, we owe him a great debt of Akar Satayv, and he came special to speak for us. It's my schus to introduce Rabbi Feiner to give the final drasha of the convention.
Shus, the Choshev Rabbanim Shlita, the Anhola of Agudas Yisroel, Holy Rav Eytan Feiner. Allow me to start with an incredible story. This is a story by Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein. No, it doesn't appear in the more classic Tivcha Yabiu Aleinu D'Shabeach. But if you receive those monthly, unbelievably valuable Kontresim Vavei Ha'amudim V'Chashu Kehem, if I could turn you back to Menachem Av Tavshin Pei Daled, listen to this unbelievable Maisa. And Rav Zilberstein Shlita heard the Maisa from a Rav in Bnei Brak by the name of Rav Yisrael Ram. And he tells him that I was sitting on a bus, I had an important phone call to make, I tried to turn myself to the side, I had to sequester myself against the window to hush. And hushed tones, and still my neighbor sitting next to me was screaming at me, and all of a sudden everybody was screaming at me, shut off the phone, but it was a case of pikuach nefashis. But the lights went on in the bus, they were screaming, I had no choice but to put away the phone. Rabbi Silverstein, let me tell you the background, let me provide the reka. And he tells him that earlier that day he received a call from a yid, a despondent father, whose son was already an older single osek in the parsha of Shidduchim for a number of years, and finally, he met what apparently is the one, his bashert, and the shidduch is about to be finalized. And Litzari says to Rav Hiram, he says, my son did he perpetrated an avla, and they had to kick him out of the yeshiva. But the problem is that the girl he's dating, and they're mamish on the threshold of the Erusin. And she has a brother learning in the same yeshiva, and if word gets out that my son was kicked out of yeshiva, the shidduch, it's inevitable, it's going to fall through. And Rav Hiram, you have to be sympathetic, you have to empathize. Please, I beg you, I plead, I have a heart condition, and if my son doesn't make the shidduch go through, and if he can't get back into yeshiva, it's mamish pikuach nefashis. I don't know if I'm going to make it alive through this episode. Please, I beseech, call up the Rosh Hashiva. I heard you have a connection, a yachas with him. He says, okay. Commiserating for this father in despair, he calls out the Rosh Hashiva, calls up various members of the Anola. They say, okay, we have to make a meeting. We have to decide if we're going to take this boy back in. And Ravi Ram continues. He says, I'll take achrayas. And you know what? You can even have him eat and sleep somewhere else. But to Lamaisi, you got to take him back into the yeshiva. I beg, he says, okay, we're going to meet. I have to tell you, Ravi Ram continues, I'm going to be on a bus. I have a family gathering together in Yerushalayim. Our Kodesh shall be traveling tonight from Bnei Brak to Yerushalayim. No matter what, call me on my cell phone. I have to get an update. This is a matzav of pikuach nefashis. The father's life could be on the line. I need to know the news. Take the boy back into yeshiva. They say, don't worry, Rav Hiram, we will call. And so he gets on that bus, an evening ride from Bnei Brak to Yerushalayim Kodesh. And a couple of minutes in, the lights go off, and his neighbor starts dozing to sleep, as well as so many other passengers on that bus to Yerushalayim. And all of a sudden, he sees on his kosher phone, he's getting a ring. And of course, it was on vibrator, but he sees it's the Rosh Hashiva, and he starts talking to the Rosh Hashiva. And Nachmal, he's trying to persuade him. He says, Rosh Hashiva, you got to take him in. And the passenger sitting next to him starts screaming, you're a rabbi. Here he is, a rabbi Bnei Brak, a long, a white beard. And you're talking on the telephone. Don't you know that people trying to sleep? That doesn't matter to you. What's with you people? And he starts screaming incessantly, and lo and behold, everybody else wakes up. The driver turns the lights back on, and oh, is he embarrassed. He can sense instantly everybody in the bus is staring at him. He says, okay, I'll put away the phone, put away the Rosh Yeshiva says, I can tell something's going on. You know what? I'll just tell you the boy got in. Baruch Hashem. And he hangs up the phone, puts in a vibrator, and he says, that's it, I'm not going to take it out again. The humiliation that he had to endure. And meanwhile, he's sitting, Shpilkus, he has to call the father. He has to let the father know that his son in Shidduchim, it's going to happen. Be'ez Hashem, the boy got back into yeshiva. And he's itching. Mom is saying, I got to call him. It's a matzah. We're going to find him, but he can't go ahead. Guess Oshani, he's going to wake up his neighbor sitting right next to him in the adjacent seat. And he's likewise going to wake up everybody else in the bus. And he's now ready to endure that shame and humiliation. He says, I'll wait until we get closer to Yerushalayim. And we fast forward. It's now about an hour later. And they're a couple of minutes away from Yerushalayim, from the Tachana Merkazit, and the lights go on. Everybody perks up. It's time he could take out his phone. And he takes out his phone, and right away, he dials that number of the father who had called him previously. And he calls him up, and all of a sudden, the second that phone rings, he senses that the person sitting right next to him also takes out his phone. And he starts talking, and he says, yes, from so-and-so. And he hears his own voice, and he says, how could this be? And lo and behold, the person sitting next to him is none other than the father of the boy himself. And he chaps right away and he says, you Rav Eytan? He says, yes. He says, don't you know those phone calls? It was all to get your son into yeshiva. He says, I beg you for mechila. I was screaming at you. I embarrassed you. I was mavayish you barabim. I had no clue. He says, I was making all those calls on your behalf. So tell me, Rabbi, what are you doing on this bus right now? He says, I was so forlorn, I was giving up all hope. I said, the only more thing I could do now is to be samech on the Ribbon Shalom. I'm going to head to the Kaisel HaMaravi, Olam Lozos HaShchinim, Mikos HaMaravi, and I'm going to daven that my son should get back into yeshiva, and the shidduch should actualize. He says, you don't even have to do that anyway. But Lamaisa, I just got him into the yeshiva. That was the call. All those calls were for you. I would never take out a phone call in the middle of a nighttime bus ride. But I felt it was because nefashos to make sure you wouldn't have a heart attack. Machalach. True story. When Rav Zilberstein shared this Maisa with the Ramaylich Biramin Shlit, the Ramaylich says, Musar Haskel Godol, to extract, to derive from Azai Maisa. How many times are we sitting on a bus ride in life, on a journey in life, and we're screaming at the person next to us, and we're screaming at the Eibishter, and the Eibishter Kaviyachol is sitting next to us every second, every moment of that journey. And the Eibishter, the divine puppeteer Kaviyachol, is pulling the strings every single step of the way. Controlling every event. Eibishter's pulling the strings, and he's looking at you, and you're complaining, and you're not done. In the Kafschus, Eibishter says, I'm making all the calls for you, my tire yin. My press is heilig yin. I'm doing it all for you. Stop screaming at me. Stop complaining. Dale Carnegie got it right in the very first chapter, how to win friends and influence people. Stop criticizing, condemning, and complaining. Rabbi say it's got to begin. Klapi the Eibishter Kaviyachol. That's Dr. Mailech Binim is the Musar Haskell to walk away from Hazai Maisa. And the journey of life, sometimes it could be bumpy, could be a rocky ride, but the Eibishter is controlling and making those calls for us every step of the way. It's not at all surprising. Devarim Gedolim Einam Mikra, our world's classic Musar Sefer that the ganze Welt learns continuously is, of course, Pirkei Avos, the moral compass of our lives. And we always talk about how it begins, Seifa Basa Reisha Gar. Let's go ahead and momentarily just scrutinize the very beginning of Pirkei Avos. After all, Anshe Knesset Gedola, they received the Torah after the Bar Tanura and others explain. We delineate the Messiah. Moshe Kibator Messina, Mesor Yeshua, makes its way to the 120 members of the Anshe Knesset Gedola. So let's listen in. Rabbi said this is before we even get to Shimon HaTzadik. He was Mishiari Knesset Gedola. That'll be Perak Aleph Mishnah Beis. That'll be Al Shlosh Forma Olam Omed, Ala Torah Avodah Miyason. That means even before we encounter the three-legged tripod upon which the entire world is founded, is predicated. The first message of Pirkei Avos, of Anshe Knesset Gedolah, three things. They have thousands upon thousands of Mamarim. But yet, towards the Dorei Dorah, so we need to know the following. And what's number one? Dahainu, the very first message in our moral compass and guide for life, have a Mesunim B'din. And the Phineas Nighty, it's not at all coincidental, as the Maral and Derechayim of Fanar points out. It's Lavdavka addressing the Dayanim. It's addressing each and every one of us. And we talk about the Mishnah later on of Idanis Kol Adam L'Kav Schus. Well, you know where donning has to start? Have a Mesunim B'din. Slow down in life. Don't rush to judge Yedim. Don't judge somebody else so quickly. Don't judge the Dayanim. Don't Dayanim judge the litigants in front of you so quickly. With Pichus, be astute, be clever, be wise, be slow. But Rabbi say, have a Mesunim B'din. Don't rush to judge the Eibishter. If you don Kol Adam L'Kav Schus, then Klapi Kavayach Las Kamakama, don L'Kav Schus, he knows what he's doing. And he's sitting alongside you every second of every single day. And he's pulling the strings and he's taking you exactly where you need to go. Had a Rosh Hashiva from Bnei Brak in my office a while back, and he was going through a terrible tzara, Rahman al-Itzlan, in his family. And he was coming in on a flight from Tel Aviv, and he said it was the most turbulent flight of his life. And he comes to my office at the White Shul, and he says, the plane was rocking back and forth. I never had and never experienced such a scary flight. But I imagine, Lu Yitzur, theoretically, if there was a 70-year-old man sitting right next to me on the plane, and he had never been on a plane before, nobody thought to brief him about what it was like. And I would imagine, here we are, average jet plane goes between 570, 600 miles an hour. Peak altitude between 37, 40,000 feet up in the air. And all of a sudden the turbulence would have been, I would have been sitting next to the 70-year-old Yid. And he would have been sitting on Spilkis. Right away he would have discarded that airplane food. Nobody wants to go down eating that airplane meal. And he would have gone ahead and taken out his Tehillim. And he would have been zogging Tehillim with tears cascading down his face. And I would have looked at him and said, Rabbi Yid, it's okay. No, it's not. I know that song, the Atheist Convention in LA. And I'm telling you, we're going down. I don't know what's going to be. Oh, the Rosh Hashiva didn't say that part, but I'll upon him. I think the plane is going down. What's going to be? He says, I would have told him, Rabbi, this is flight. This is the Metzias. This is reality. We're in a tin canister. We're in a piece of metal going close to 600 miles an hour, close to 40,000 feet up in the air. What do you expect? This is flight. We're surrounded by myriad jet streams and wind currents. This is the Metzias of flight. And then he reflected internally and said, I understand. I got the best captain in the world, the best pilot. When was the last time you ever interviewed a pilot before you got in on an airplane? You get on an airplane, you're going close to 600 miles, 40,000 feet up there. Did you ever? How do you know he wasn't in the bar drinking 20 shots before he got on the plane? How do you know he's not a Meshuggah anti-Semite? The rabbit, had you ever met him? No. You saw me. I know he's not going to take the plane down. The chances, it's just not happening. You're so on a random unknown pilot, and we're not somech on the Eibishter that he knows exactly what he's doing. Kaviyachol. Yes, facing a world that has gone mad, that's been mad for years, facing the future, but we got the Eibishter sitting right alongside us, the captain of the ship, the pilot of the plane, Kaviyachol, and he's pulling the strings every step. I have him as soon as then. Don't judge him. He knows exactly what he's doing. Just hold on tight for the ride. Have him as soon as then. Don't rush to judge the Eibishter. Life comes down to one big yesod. Parshas Veschon and Perek Dalet Pasuk Lamed Hey Eino Movado. Chaim Eloshen Kayadu and Nefesh Chaim and Shar Gimel Perek Yud Beis. You have to walk, eat, sleep, live, and breathe. Eino Movado 24/7, 365. You got to live it. You got to feel it. You got to sense it in your bones. It's got to course through your veins. Eino Movado. You got to say it. You got to believe it. Hamanti Ki Adaber. Dr. Chatzko talk about it all the time. Eino Movado. No one's going to touch us. No one can control us. It's all in the yad of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol. And he's the best pilot who is steering us exactly where we need to go, and we're going to get there at the right time. Gewaldige Wort by Rav Avram Gorvitz from Gateshead. A wonderful sefer on Fer Arziel he has in his Agudah Pesach, turns our attention to the end of the Agudah, Echad Miyodea, until Chagadia was added. It appears later on. And many Haggadahs have the very last song. And let's keep in mind, Brachas Yebez on Aleph, we finish Olel Seder with the Vilna Gaon. We have a Messiah writes, Rebda, Daf Mem Vav of Lel Shimurim, 64 mitzvahs on Lel Seder. We done the Kittel, it's Mamish. We get visited by Eli Yanavi, a Heilige of a Heilige night. This is Lel Seder, more mitzvahs on Lel Seder, Seder, Isa, Seder, Bodan than any other night of the year. And we get to the end, and we're Mamish, we're holding by lofty spiritual plateaus. We're holding by Badragas and his Govas, Vanillas, Vayeser, and we get to the very end. Okay, Rabbi, so now we're going back to kindergarten. Let's go back to Cheder. Oh, who knows? Well, very good. Okay, let's send a lollipop over to Yaakov. He go, 2. Oh, it's a excellent. Oh, good. Chazara. 3. Rabbi said, this is the Faher at the end of a Seder. Let's understand the Chidos say they were all saying Yoni Torah Sanister Zohar. That's what they were learning, Rabbi Akiva. We get to the end of the Seder. 3 are the Ovas. Givaldig and Karnovas El Shlosha 4 the You're very good. I'm impressed. Save another Afikomen present. For layover, Givaldig 6. This is the end of the Seder. Siyuma de Milsov, a Lel Seder, a Heilige Seder, what's shot? Zogta, the gates of Rosh Hashiva, Moiradik, in the world of psychology. Oftentimes, if we want to assess, we want to gauge, where are you holding? Where's your mind? Where are you at? What makes you tick? What do? We hold up an image. We throw out a number, something, an idea, a concept. What's the first thing that comes to mind? I don't want you to dwell on it. Just answer me. Take it from me out instantly. By the end of a Seder, when I hold up an Echad Miyodea, there only is one on a Yid's radar screen. This is the litmus test. Did you have a Moedik Seder? Did you have Tak and Aliyah? Then when I hold up a 1, there only is one in your Mabat HaChayim and your worldview and life perspective. There only exists one, and that's what Einam Avado Echad Elokeinu Sheshmayim Arts. 2. What's 2? Not how many cars you have in the driveway. No, what's 2? There only is one. 2. Shnei Lechos Abris. What's 3? How many vacations you went on this year? Chalila V'chas. There's only one musig of 3. What's 4? Not how many dresses you took to the Agudah convention. There only is 1 4. That's it the most. That's all you're thinking about. There's only one musig by the end of the Seder. That's Echamiyah. That's got to be life. So it all comes down to emunah. The Agudah got it right, as they always do. What's the Iker theme this year? And we've heard it from my Choshev colleague Shlita. Comes down, Rabbi said, the end of Maseches Makos, the bottom of Chavdalet, Amin Aleph, when we want to sum up, or not really sum up, as the Maharsha explains, when you can't focus on all the Taryag Mitzvah Satira. So we went through the Dori Doris, David, Ramid, and Alachas, Esrei on 11, V'chulei, Bamicha 3, until the Siyum of the Milsa, we come to the end, B'chavaka, Kin, the Trey Asar, Navi Chavaka, Parabes, Pasek Dalet, V'tzadik, B'manaser, Yechet. It all comes down to one Yesod. All Taryag Mitzvahs, Mavusas, and Miyusah predicated on one Yesod, V'tzadik, B'manaser, Yechet. Comes down to emunah. So the Fianias Daiti, why is this famous Gemara at the end of Maseches Makos? Well, we have a Klal Yadua, Rav Tzadok HaKohen, and a Sefer Yisroel Kadoshim and Ozvav, and many places bandied about Sifrei Rav Tzadok, that every Maimer Chazal appears in a context is nestled against the backdrop of a Miyuchadik Gemara, even a specific parak, for a reason. So why is Tzadik B'mnoshe Yichya? What's it doing at the end of Makos? And the Fianias Daiti, if we go Rav Tzadok Dik, you know what it's doing it then? Because you know sometimes in life you feel you're getting patched. Because you have it October 7th, you have a Shmini Atzeres, and you get patched and you get hit. And you got to deal with the Krumkeit and the Tumah and the immorality and perversity and depravity that surrounds us, that's rife, rampant throughout the world. And we have Makos. When you get to the end of Makos, 24 dapim, 24 hours a day. I'm feeling Makos, I'm getting patched. Don't turn the page. Don't finish the Masechta until you realize what? V'tzadik b'manosa yicha. That's what you hold on to. At the end of a day of 24 hours, the feeling Makos. Hey, Luena Lokin, Paragama 3, Daf Yud Gimel. And you get to the end of the parak. You know what the end of the parak is? Tzadik b'manosa yicha. It all comes down to emunah. Hold on tight. But it all comes down to that yesod. B'chavoka gamidan alachas v'tzadik b'manosa yicha. Can't hold on to emunah. Everyone says, okay, big deal. We all have it. We all have emunah, or do we? Yes, we know it intellectually. We hear great speeches. We get inspired for all but a couple of hours. Rav Achonon writes in Kovetz Mamorim Mechatzkel Levenstein in his Or Yecheskel Emunah, there's a clear distinction drawn between emunah, Pesechel, Leumas, emunah b'chush, emunah b'leiv. Yes, intellectually we know it. We've inculcated these truths, These veritable two, we know the veracity of Torasena HaKadoshah, and we know the veracity of all the Chosheva, Musa, Shmusa we've heard, and all the Divrei Chizuk and Osiris that we've garnered in throughout this unbelievable and uplifting and meaningful Shabbos Kodesh. But in the end of the day, do we live it? Let's go back to Noach, the first one and the only one of the pages of Chumash described as a tzaddik. Noach is tzaddik tzamamai b'darosa. And then we make our way later on in Parshas Noach, Perek Zayin, Pasuk Zayin. It comes time to enter into the Teifa. And what does Rashi say? Dibra maskim nei me'amabu afnoach mekatani emunah hayamamin v'neino mamin shiavo mabo achidachgu amayim nechas hateva. Noach, the Eibishter spoke to you. There's going to be a flood. If there's going to be a flood, that's it. It's happening. But what are you waiting for? If there's a flood, it's happening. And yet what? He only goes in v'nei me'amabu. What's pshat? Zogt of Avram Yafin in his Musaf Hadas, Zogt the Stipler in his Brichas Peretz, Zogt the Chaim Friendly Endurance, Sifsei Chaim and Bracious, Zogt Rav Henach Leibowitz and Chedush Olei, B'chod HaMachsim Asino, that Tzana Shova is, yes, he had emunah b'seichel, in his intellect, in the realm, the domain of his mind, of his seichel, of his rosh, rishon leiforim. Avad, he knew with certitude, he knew that there was going to be a flood. But he didn't believe it. It wasn't mamish in his kishkes. He didn't believe it. B'chosh b'libo. That's the kilkul and the tzad of Noach. He was a tzaddik, but merely in the realm of the intellect. But what? Because he didn't feel it, and it wasn't in his veins. But we all say we have emunah shalema. We say it every day. 13 Yud Gimel Ikrei Adas. Many people daily after Shachris Adim emunah shalema. So let me ask you, what's emunah shalema? You believe in something, you don't believe in something. What's emunah shalema? Yes, the differences between emunah and yediyah and Dama the Chelik Dalit of Rav Shachs Avi Yesri and the Rambam quoting the Biskarav, Hay and the Meiser Rekeach in the beginning of them, the distinction shown between emunah versus yediyah. But before we get to yediyah, before we get to the yedata, what's emunah? Pashub emunah. I believe hard. Either you believe or you don't believe. What's emunah shleim? So my Zaydi Olav Sholem said a great mashal years ago. There was a world-famous acrobat and tightrope walker by the name of Charles Blondin, known otherwise as the Great Blondini. He was a French tightrope walker, and he was the first back on June 30th, 1859, to cross over 1,100-foot long, thin wire over Niagara Falls. And he crossed over Niagara Falls, and he did it several times, and they got the media outlets on the first crazy, insane individual. And he went across Niagara Falls 1,100 feet in a tightrope. And he had an agent by the name of Harry Colcord. And Harry says, you know what, we got the media here, we got the TV, we got the radio, everything's here. You know what, you got to go with somebody on your back. If you go piggyback, that'll really make the news. He says, well, you think I could do it? What, Harry, you crazy? You think I could piggy? Now I'm already totally b'das acherim, right? I'm going to go and he's going to show us. You think I can't do it? You know, I'm telling you, you're the great Blondini. You could do it. You could do it. He has no other tachlis in life, right? To cross over a little wire from one side to the other, right? As I said, so you could do it. You really believe I could do it? Harry, if you really believe I could do it, then you'll be the guy going piggyback. And if you look at the biographies of the great Blondini, and in the old Guinness Book of World Records, there's a Meshuggah, his manager, Harry Colcord, is going across Niagara Falls piggyback. He's not even the guy getting the fame. Yes, he gets a nice commission. He's putting his life, because that's emunah shlema. Emunah! I know you could do it. You're the great Charles. Come on, Blondin, you could do it. Yeah, you really believe. Yeah, then put your life on the line. I believe the Eibishter fears the bell. I'm still buying the lottery tickets. Still doing way too much. Ashtadlus. Still checking 17 news stations every night. Wasting our time. Brain rot of the word of the year 2024 according to the Oxford Dictionary. People being mevazvis, the zman, the bittul zman galore. Brain rot. We believe intellectually. Do we really believe in our heart of hearts? Do we really have an emunah? An emunah that's shleima legamri. Many Hasidus Sfarim talk about esrog. The esrog is Rosh Tevis, an acronym for Aleph, Tov, Reish, Gimel, Aleph, Emunah, Tov, Tshuva, Reish, Refuah, and Gimel, Gula. Those are the four in the Tzana Shava that have a musig, a shaykhis to the Indian of shleimus. There's emunah shleima. There's Tshuva shleima. Ramam, Hilchos Tshuva, Perek Beis, Halach Aleph versus Halach Beis, Tshuva Gemura. Then there's a Gula. You can have a Gula protest. There's a Gula shleima. There's a Refuah. Person can have, but Refuah shleima. He comes home hale and healthy like never before. before. So what's the idea? Why are they all marumas ever so subtly in the word Esrog? The funniest idea, it's poshit. I'm Mishnah Meforeshes and Sukkot Lulav Agosel, the bottom of Lamadal and Beis, Esrog, that's Chosar, Mashu is posel. The only mitzvah we have pre-Eitz Hod, you know it's beautiful in the eyes of the Eibishter. I don't want to be missing anything. I want you to be whole. I want you to be sholeh. Rabbi Yisrael Salatadik. I don't care how big you are. Quantitatively, I want the quality. I don't care about the kamas I've makbid on the echos. Who are you? Are you an Odom Sholeh? That's what I want to see. I want to see shleimus, and Esrog can't be missing one even minuscule amount from its rind, from the peel. Otherwise, it's an Esrog that's possible. I don't want emunah. I want emunah shleimus. You know what emunah shleimus is? What are you willing to do for the Eibishter? Are you willing to live it, breathe it 24/7? There's a reason, yes, we know the breakup of Tanakh into chapters, that's generally attributed to Stephen Langton, the Archbishop of Canterbury, for the purpose of the Judeo-Christian debates of the 11th, 12th centuries. Well, one can't ignore the obvious, the non-coincidence that Naaseh v'nishma is chapter 24, verse 7 of Parshas Mishpatim. Because 24/7, you got to live and you got to breathe. Naaseh v'nishma. Eibishter, I'm willing to put it all on the line. It doesn't have to make sense. I'm living my life 24/7, 365. I want to be boto mavuta to kavayocha eina mavado. I want emunah shalema. As Avosha Weiss said years ago at a convention, he said in a Shalashudis, I want to present a dugma, an example of what it means in Eved Hashem. The quintessential, the paradigmatic Eved Hashem, he says, is someone who has the emunah pshuta of the Hungarian Yidden after the Holocaust. That's emunah shlema. And someone who knows how to learn like the best Litvish Rosh Hashivas, and can daven like the most heilig shebehelig Hasidus Rabbeim, the Admorim, and someone who has the Kavod HaRav, the Olam HaSfaradim, who kiss their Rav on the hand every single time, and you have that emunah pshuta, the emunah shleim, and the Hungarian Jews have that, and the Yashrus of the Yankees, then you're good to go. And some wanted to add on later, and if you had the Abbas Yisroel like the Tziyonim, and it's a piece of the Yeshua of the Chabadskers, you put it all packaged together into one. Agudah Achas, and then you are good to go. Mashiach is here. That's a quintessential Eved Hashem. But the emunah pshuta is what the Hungarian Yidden after the Holocaust. That's it. It's all the Eibishter. He's the pilot. He's the divine puppeteer coming. He knows exactly what he's doing. You're going to question me. That's the end of Maseches Malkus. And thus we turn to a fascinating Ben Yehoyada, Rabbi Yosef Chaim. The Ben Yehoyada writes, of Fanor to Malkus Chavdalet and Aleph. I have a question. A diak on the posik and Chavakuk and Perak base posik Dalet Tzadik Be'emunah. Also, Tzadik is inside Emunah. What a peculiar terminology. L'chayra, it ought to have been Tzadik im Emunah. So you live with Emunah. You don't live inside Emunah. Zok the Ben Yehoyada Rabbaisai Lefi Devareinu. A lot of people have emunah b'seichel, emunah b'rosh. It's in the realm, the domain of the intellect, but it doesn't peter down. The Kotzker Rebbe, the longest journey in life is from the brain, from the mayach to the lave, to become a chush coursing through your veins. That's the longest journey in the world. To be a tzaddik, tzaddik is tzaddi dalad yirkuf gematria 204. Emunah yields only 102. How are you going to go from 102 to 204? Zok the Ben Yehoyada tzaddik beis emunos yichye. The mystic Erlich Tzaddik lives with two emunas. He has the emunah b'seichel and the emunah b'chush. Emunah plus emunah is 102, 102. That is 204. That's a tzaddik. You want to be a tzaddik, you got to live it. You got to breathe it, Rabbi say. The Eibishter fears the Welt. Yes, I know it. I learned it in Cheder and Yeshiva. Yes, I chazer Mesel Shisham Darach Hashem. No, you got to live it. What's there to complain about? The Eibishter knows exactly what he's doing. You ever have a meeting, you go into our soul and there's a lot of turbulence. Say, let me knock on the cockpit. You know what, pilot, if you would just go a little bit slower and you would go to the left, 30 degrees. What are you, Meshuggah? He knows what he's doing. I don't have to ask him. So you don't trust the Eibishter? He doesn't know what he's doing? Dr. Moshe Wilson, Emunah Sitecha. You know how to be B'simcha Tamid, Ivdu as Hashem B'simcha, tell him Kapitel Kov. And the Hershey in the world of phonetic cognates words and Lashon HaKodesh are so often interrelated. If you're somech on the Eibishter, you'll always be b'simcha. Somech simcha. But if you feel natzav in a state of despair, despondency, depressed, it's because what? You feel natzav. The Eibishter abandoned you. But the Eibishter didn't abandon Hashem. If you feel a richok, a distance, you have to ask yourself, who moved? God didn't go anywhere. You moved away from him. Natzav. Shenkin, if you're somech on the Eibishter, you'll always be b'simcha. You got to live with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. But Rabbi say emunah is not going to be enough. Because what happens after that Gemara, we finish off Rav Tzodek at the end of Makis 24, Dafim 20. Makis Sadik ben Oshicha, but what's the end of the Gemara? The famous stories, the 2 episodes with Rabbi Akiva v'Chaveira. And the last, how do we walk away from Makis? Know that there will be an Achama. Akiva nichamtanu, Akiva nichamtanu. It ends with an Achama, it ends with hope for the future. Rabbi Akiva sees the Churban. He sees the utter debris of the Churban bias. Beis HaMikdash, and what is it? The Shualim Hochambo. And he says the Nevuahs, the prophecies of Uriah and Zechariah, Tuli and Baldodi, interdependent. And he sees into the future, he's looking and he gives us hope and he instills in our spiritual DNA that we can have that hope. The same Rebbe Kiva Brachos Daf Sama Command Avachon Lo Tov Havid. He gives us that hope and says, don't despair, you need to have hope. Rabbi say, emunah is 102. And the Ben Yoda told us 102 and 102. Emunah here and emunah here is 204 about your tzaddik. But how are we going to get to 613? Because he needs to have hope. Tikva, Tov Kuf Vav Hey, about your 511. When you add tikva, l'fiyani yisdaiti temuna, liz tzaddik manasiyah, but you walk out of a good convention, believers, you bet we are. And when I visited these soldiers in the hospital last year, Hanukkah, after October 7th, and it was fascinating to walk in. We had someone with a guitar and was singing with secular soldiers. We said, what song do you want to sing? They said, Anachnu Mamina b'nei Mamina. No yarmulke, no tzitzis at the time. Jeans, t-shirts, sneakers, all we want to sing is Anachnu Mamina b'nei Mamina. But we hold on ever tenaciously and steadfastly to tikva. Because coupled with that, rock solid emunah, pshut emunah shlema has to be tikva ho. And when you add tikva 511 to emunah, then you get 613. Boy, so we're not done with gematrias just yet. They told me I have until Ma'ariv tonight. Early Ma'ariv, plug. Mincha, Metasha. Rabbi said we have to address the Muhammad. We're about to make our way to Chanukah Boleinu L'Tova, and we're going to recite Al Anisim, Al Gruas, Al Shuos, V'chulei, V'chulei, Al Muhammad, spread of Yitzhak Isaac Sher, and a powerful peace. And Leket Sichas Musar and Chelek Beis on the Moedim, he says, I don't understand. I'm thanking the Eibishter for the Machamas. If you would preface with mention of the war, then I would understand. On the heels, Be'ikvist, that the military battle, then we emerged victorious. We vanquished our adversaries. And when we emerged the victors, then I understand. We thank the Eibishter not only for the Machama that led to the Nisim and the Purkim and Chulei, but it's Mashra Zog, the Salbaka Rosh Hashiva, or Yitzhak Isaac Sher. The Proteus, we're spelling it out piecemeal. Eibishter, thank you for the Nisim. And the Purkot and the Yeshuas, thanking you for the Machama. And at the end, I'm thanking you for the Machama, Mayai, Mapesha Advara, Lo Dovaru. What do you mean, thanking you for the war? Thank you, Hashem, for the war. How do we make sense of that? Explains of Yitzhak Isaac Sher. Pshat is that we need the wars and we need, in fact, anti-Semitism to keep us in mind. Eibishter gives us so many wake-up calls to remind us of what the life is all about and to engender our ability to reprioritize. See, we have Brachos Laman Beis and Aleph and Moshe's Taina Tal Kodesh Ruch Vayishman Yeshur and Vayivot when it's all good. And yes, when we can have a Tesla SUVs and you can have meat boards and you can have Toameas. And you can have kiddushes that have gone way out of control, Rabbi Say, and people spending way too much on homes and on cars and on vacations. Rachmana litzlan. And sometimes Vayishman Yeshur and Vayivot, I need to have that Rolex, and I need to have that watch, and I need to have the new toy, and the new SUV, and I need to keep changing every single year. Somebody once picked me up from the shul in a fancy car, and he saw my face when I walked into the fancy car. Right away, he says, don't worry, Rabbi, I got a great deal on the lease. I paid so little for it. So it's not that this is your she'ifa, though. This is what you want in life. Rabbeinu Yonah Ishlafim Halalo and Mishlech of Zayin Chaf Aleph. We tie to a Magdir person by what he praises. This is what you value. To get us to rebalance our act, our Mabat HaChayim Zoktor Yitzhak Isaac Sher. Hey, Mr. We thank you for the Mechomas. Why? Because we needed those wake-up calls, because we were getting complacent. And we weren't in a Sirah to come back to you, Shuvay Lai, and we weren't living with almost Erlichkeit, and we weren't learning as much, as good, as best as we ought to have. And we weren't doing all the mitzvahs the way we needed that wake-up call. Klal Yisroel needed the wake-up call. And Rabbi said, look, we didn't want to ever have to be talking about in October 7, Shmini Atzeres. But the amount of tzitzis and tefillin and Shmini Shabbos and people that have come back to Yiddishkeit. The awakening, the epiphany that has been so widespread throughout the ranks of Klal Yisroel. Hey, Mr., we thank you, Hanukkah time. Thank you for the Machaba. You know why? Because Yidden were falling prey to the lure and seduction of Greek society, of the Olympics. Because they cared too much about things going on in Madison Square Garden. They were running after concerts. And they were running into fields and stadiums of the Goyim. And they didn't learn from the Agudah that the Ksav Sefer writes in his Igra Sefer, Igra Yud Ches. And in his Drashas Ksav Sefer, and his Psicha L'Bnei Yeshiva, when the Gemara says in Megillah Vavam and Aleph that in the future, Chazal predicted this over 2,000 years ago, we're going to teach Torah, we're going to celebrate Torah where? In the theaters, in the stadiums, in the circuses of the Goyim. We're going to have every 7.5 years, thanks, Akar Satov, endless gratitude to the Agudas Yisroel. And we're going to go where what? Where the Jets try and play football. And where there's a team, Giants, you think this is what it's about? No, you know why there's a MetLife Stadium? Because we bring in Mimisa L'Chaim. MetLife, we bring it to Mimisa L'Chaim. Rishom Afilu B'Chayim, Kruya Mason, Brochas Yudches. We brought it back to life because that's what the stadium's for. It's not for concerts. Not for people trying to throw a silly little piece of pigskin against another person. To go ahead, it's ridiculous. They asked Chaim Kanevsky years ago, is it mutter to play basketball on Shabbos? So Chaim Kanevsky, the Sarator said, and he let me in, what in the world is basketball? Well, you see, Rebbe, can you imagine explaining a sport to Chaim Kanevsky, the Sarator? Yeah, we have two teams, and they play with a little piece of pigskin leather, and they try and bounce the ball, and then they shoot it into a basket, and whoever gets the ball into the basket first wins the game. He says, Ani Lemavin said, just take the basketball, and take the ball and put it into the basket before Shabbos begins, and you don't have any shots. Shmuel Burman, the Mirash Yeshiva, the Sefer B'Korei Shmuel, Parshas Achrimos, and Pasuk and Achrimos, Yud Ches Gimel, V'Chuk Hashem Los Alecho. To hear him the way when he comes to America, he says, I see adults playing a childish game. They're playing baseball, they're getting dressed up in costumes, and they're throwing a ball, and they're hitting it with a piece of wood. Man, you see from the Emistika Das Torah, how silly nourishkeit this. And what do? We bring it Kedusha with. No, it's for a Siyum Hashas. It's not for sports. The Mechomas are needed to wake us up and say, what's life all about? Are we spending too much time on sushi and meat boards? Too much time on Rolexes and somebody told me Patek Philippe, however you pronounce it. And Tesla SUVs, and we need self-driving. And Pesach hotels going out of control. Is this the priority of a Yid? Torah is Kehem Chayin of Yorach Yemenu. Yes, we know it. We study it. Okay, now I leave the base where I should know this is life. This is 24/7 Asav and Ishmael living with the Eibishter. The Mechomas said to put us back on track. Anti-Semitism. Don't ever get comfortable in Golos. Yaakov Avinu leaves the base Medrash Hashem and 14 years. He doesn't sleep awake, incessant, diligent learning. The quintessential Masman is the Maral outlines Parachavah to First Yisrael. And now what? He lies down for the night. Eibishter does a miracle. And he takes the 12 stones, different sheets, how many stones, and miraculously they consolidate and they become a stone. Eibishter, once you're doing a miracle, give him a nice geshmaka, the Armon Hotel down comforter. Give him a nice pillow. A geshmaka, you're making him come there. Give him a nice pillow or make it look. Terence says you leave in the base, or you should go into Golos. Never get comfortable. I'll do miracles for you. But never relax too much, never get too comfortable. Because this is Golos. This isn't where we belong. Don't get comfortable with the big homes and the swimming pools and the cars. And 100 restaurants and Central Avenue in the 5 towns. Chalaikas is needed, Zok Sabaka Rosh Hashiva, to give us a major needed wake-up call. What's life all about? Let's engage in that consequential balancing act and reprioritize. So the Sam Sefer says beautifully, and that the way we combat machlokes is al yedei shalom rav, when there's an abundance of peace, when we can all get along and become agudah achas, mikamcha yisrael gayechad ba'aretz. Machlokes, he says, is gematria 578, and shalom rav is likewise 578. And perhaps we could add that if there's machlokes, then gematria based on the Sefer Ma'aseh Choshev. Bo goyim benachal asecha. You know when the goyim can penetrate. You know when they can break through a metaphysical wall, our barrier. Bo goyim benachal asecha. When there's machlokes, when we have the antithesis of Shalom Rav. If we can't get along, then they can enter, they can break it. The way to emerge victorious from the Milchama is, yes, to reprioritize, yes, to have rock solid emunah shlema, coupled with that tikva, the hopes for the future. But Rabbi said, let's not forget, the Milchama is gematria 123, gematria am echad. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3, 123, Milchama 123, and am echad 123. You want to overcome and escape every and any Milchama. The way to do it is to become an am echad. That is the key to life. So let's close with one cherry on top, gematria. On election night, I received the following text. And yes, I wasn't up when they, well, maybe, I hope I wasn't. People watching 2 or 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I get a text in the middle of the night. As is election night, Rabbi Feiner, I want to share with you the following. I'm sure this was going viral. All the states that didn't finish counting last night should count tonight without a bracha. And then they sent me the following gematria, Tavshin Pehei. Tehei Shnas Pidyon Hashvuyim, because the captives, the chatufim, are in our hearts and our minds every second of every day. Right at the forefront, Shnas Tavshin Pehei, Tehei Shnas Pidyon Hashvuyim. But this person added a gematria. He said, Rabbi Feiner, I want you to know Donald Trump emerged the victor, and there's a gematria going around. Tavshin Pehei is gematria equals exactly 785. It's 5785. And Donald Trump Nasi is gematria 785. Donald Trump with Tes, Reish, Aleph, Mem, Pei, the Yiddish spelling. Donald Trump Nasi, gematria 785. Rabbi Feiner, you better not end with this, otherwise they're not going to invite you back to another Agudah convention. So you don't have to worry, because that's not the real Tavshin Pehei. Because it's not about Donald Trump, it's not about the other person who Baruch Hashem is not there. It's not about whoever occupies the presidential office. Because Acharei Kechlos HaKol, Leiv Melochem, Leiv Sor B'Yad Hashem, Einod Mavado. Tavshin Pehei, gematria 785, is gematria Mashiach ben David Nasi. It's not Donald Trump Nasi. There's only one Nasi, and that's Mashiach ben David Nasi, and there's only one Melech, the Melech Malchei Malachim, who appoints that Nasi. And it will bring him when he sees that we're Mamash and Am Echad, gematria 123, Kohel Zayin Yadalet Zelda Mazas Olakim, the way to emerge victorious and escape every and any Milchama. Milchama 123, become an Am Echad, become an Agudah Achas. Join together, love one another, Kol Yisroel Ravim Zebazeh. Connect with Klal Yisroel like never before. Never stop davening for all the Chaylim, for all the Chayalim, all the Chatufim. Because Klal Yisroel is Klal Yisroel. And we're the smallest nation, but we're the largest family. So Tavshin Pehei, we shouldn't wait until the end, is indeed gematria 785, gematria Mashiach ben David Nasi. And it's also gematria Bias ben Yishai. Bias ben Yishai. More of Rabbi Sai, Agudah Convention, as we heard Rabbi Eytan Feiner Shliט mention, the Philadelphia Rosh Hashiva. Same Rav Huna used to say, when you walk away from a yontif, it's not about, yontif's behind me, it's about what am I taking with me. We're walking out of an Agudah convention. After the Siyum de Milsa. What are we walking away? You want Tavshin Pehei to end the way we all long and pine for it to end? You want Bias ben Yishai, you want the Mashiach ben David Nasi. Then let's reprioritize. Let's listen to what the Rabbanim Chashuvim, what the Gedolei Yisrael have shared throughout the last few days. Let's inculcate it and imbue it not only into our psyche, into our intellect, but let it sink down and penetrate into our leiv, into our chush. Let's live it, let's breathe it. Let's stop with all the crazy kedushin and the crazy cars and the watches and the dresses and the vacations. And let's make sure our life is all about Torasenu HaKadosha. And it's about joining together with Klal Yisroel, with Torah, with Tefillah, to become a guy echad ba'aretz like never before, with Bias ben Yishai, Teishnas Pidyon Hashvuyim, Teishnas Bias ben Yishai b'mhei Rav Yameinu, Amen v'Amen.
Yeah, we thank all the Rabbanim Chashuvim for what was an incredible session. We're now going to daven Mincha.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.